my computer. All right. Good. There
Here
we
we
go.
go.
Hey, Natan, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day today. I asked you this last week if you had some time to speak a little bit about remote working after I went through and worked with you a bit and read Muck Rack's remote working blog that you had out there last week. So maybe you could just start by giving us a brief overview of who you are and what Muck Rack is.
Sure, my pleasure. It's a great time to be talking about these things, so I appreciate you thinking of me and us. My name is Natan Edelsburg. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at a company called Muck Rack. We provide software to the public relations industry, so we help PR professionals monitor the news, find the right journalists to pitch, and collaborate with each other. And that's a little bit about myself.
Awesome. So, we've talked about your remote working policy before, but it's actually something that started with the company, correct? It's when the company was founded. How'd that kind of come about?
Sure. So, I work for our two co-founders. So our two co-founders, Greg Gallant, our CEO, and Lee Semmel, our CTO, created this company actually right in the depths of the recession in 2008. That's when they first had the idea for our original product, which was called the Shorty Awards. And the Shorty Awards honor the best of social media. We created the first ever social voting competition online. It took off, it trended, we got lots of press for it. And that's what led us to develop Muck Rack originally when we saw the big change in the journalism landscape. So when we were a very small, young and new company, we didn't intend, nor have we until this day, sought after investment or venture capital funding. We wanted to grow it on our own. And so when you're growing any small business, you have to be scrappy in many ways, and you have to be careful about where you spend. And we knew that it didn't make sense to spend a lot of money on an office until we actually needed one. We eventually did need one, and for many years we used co-working spaces. Now we have amazing headquarters and our own office in Soho, which we'll eventually get back to. But from the very beginning, we created a remote first environment, which meant that anyone at the company can work remotely whenever they want without permission from a manager. And this is something that really comes from the top. And when I hear Greg, our CEO, speak about our remote culture, he always talks about how important it is for leadership to buy into it, and how he always makes a point himself to be remote as well. So even before we were all forced to work remotely, he would do it certain days a week. Our CTO, Lee, works often remotely. And I think that's been a big part of it. And Chris, are you still hearing me?
Yeah, no, I hear you loud and clear. It sounds like it's a pretty open door policy with not a lot of rules, but are there any kind of like basic guidelines or rules, especially for maybe a new employee that's coming on board or somebody that's looking into maybe working at Muck Rack?
Yeah, totally. I think we've set up lots of guidelines over the years, and we've ended up hiring a lot of people who aren't based in our headquarters. So we've had to. About a third of our company, we're about 70 people, are remote full-time. We have employees in over 10 different states, over 5 different countries. And some of the things that we've done is we've been really bullish on Zoom and Slack, and not just providing them as options, but as really making it so you have to open up your video camera when you're talking to people. You can't just show up at a meeting with it off. You really need to be present. You need to be there. We've done things like really made sure to use public channels on Slack and things like that to make sure that we are providing a transparent environment for people.
Are there Zoom and Slack? I mean, they're probably getting some pretty good business right now from people that were on the fence maybe a week or two ago. Are there any other technologies that you've leveraged, or maybe some things that you've tried that didn't work out there? Or are they more your two main technologies?
I think we've tried tons of things, over the years that haven't worked out. Before we were on Slack, we used a competitor called FlowDoc. which we ended up moving away from. I think, Google for Work, Google's suite of tools has always been really helpful. We don't use email internally. We reserve that for externally, but things like
Okay.
Google Docs, we've always had what we call our Muck Rack doc of docs, which is one of the main things that when people are getting onboarded, they get access to. And it literally, it might be a little overwhelming, but it has every playbook, every mission statement, our values, any important document about the company can be found in there. So whether you're coming into the office or you're sitting at home in your home office, it's really easy if you choose to see what's going on at the company. At the same time, we've also made sure to recognize that certain things are meant to be done in a more private, careful way. And that's why we always make sure to share feedback privately, to do lots of one-on-ones over Zoom when they can't be done in person, and things like that.
Very cool. So something that it made me smile a little bit before when you said you always have to open up your camera for a meeting. As a leader, as a person in leadership at the company, I mean, what's your expectation if you have a one-on-one or it's a team meeting? Like, is it everyone is showered and fresh, it looks fresh, or have some people taken those calls from maybe their bed or in their PJs? I mean, not to lie, I had a 1998 World Series Yankees jersey on before this call, and I switched out of it really quick just to spruce up a little bit.
Nice. I kept my Muck Rack t-shirt on for self-promotion, but I'm impressed by your professionalism. I can't think of a time in the last 10 years where anyone at the company has been dressed inappropriately or has come to a video chat meeting in a way that made someone cringe. Has it happened? I'm sure it probably has unintentionally. But I just think in the environment that we're in now digitally, even before coronavirus happened, there's still, I think, just a level of understanding that I find employees have. I find that we've never needed a policy that states you have to like look showered and dressed. I think everyone generally knows the same way. If you're a company, let's put it this way: if you're a company who didn't feel the need to dictate a dress policy at your office, I don't think you need to dictate a dress policy remotely. If you were a company that felt the need to dictate a dress policy at your office, why not institute it remotely too, to make everyone feel equal? I think the key is to make everyone feel equal and to trust people. And I think what has been super inspiring for us to see is how the forced remote working has really forced employers to trust their employees more than they've ever had to. And that's something that I've been proud that we've really done. So no, we've never done a dress code or anything like that. I wear shorts, a t-shirt, and I even wear Teva sandals to work in the summer because I like being comfortable, and I shower every day. I'm not messy, but if I don't have a meeting that requires me to add that level of professionalism, I find it's my work that I bring to the table that does. Other people feel differently, and I don't think there's a wrong or a right. And I haven't seen, even in these last weird couple of days, I haven't seen anyone do a video chat from bed. But I do think there still is more to be done in terms of the video on, because that's what you asked me about. You asked about turning the video on. I think there was this whole culture for a long time until tools like Hangouts and Zoom came around and WebEx, where it was okay to slack off while you were on a conference call remotely. You just put yourself on mute, do other stuff, and that'd be that. And I think now, we have a chance to be even more productive in that. When your video's on, you actually have to talk to someone. You actually have to see someone. You have to really be there and pay attention. And that's what we want. We want people to be there. And the remote people love it the most. I think there's never been an issue with someone who's remote full-time turning their video on. I think it's occasionally those who are not always remote that you want to, remind to do it. At the same time, you got to be sensitive. If you have an employee who just had a newborn and they need to be breastfeeding potentially while they're working, that's something that's possible to do. And plenty of companies have spaces for parents to go do that. And I think that you have to make exceptions to almost every rule. And I think we don't call people out when they're not, definitely not in public. And we try to avoid having to police people, but we really do encourage it, and it's in our handbook.
Yeah, I agree with you so much on that. I think the video on makes employees almost more engaged when you have meetings, because you don't know where anyone's looking at any given time, so maybe somebody's looking right at you.
Yeah.
But it makes it more exciting, and we have to adapt, not only as employers, but I had somebody that emailed me about an interview. They're like, I have my two kids at home. I don't think I can have a professional interview right now. And I said, they should be pretty understanding right now. Like if there's a dog or a kid or somebody climbing on top of you or some background noise, then you just have to go with the flow a bit. Another one of the questions that was always in my mind, that my biggest fear about a remote working culture is actually around culture and keeping a culture alive and keeping a culture engaged. Have you ever implemented anything there that ensures that you keep that ethos and that great culture that sounds like you have in play?
Yeah, we have. So for many years now, we've done an all hands meeting, which, is mostly via Zoom, people join remotely. I think when it comes to culture, one of the best things we've done, there's almost like pre-corona and post-corona tips. But so the pre-corona tips are, we do a wins meeting every Friday, like right after lunchtime, where everyone goes around and shares a personal win, a work win, if you want to. And I think that's been really good, and that lets all the remote people feel a really big part of it. We've done Slack bingo, where
Okay.
our people ops manager has organized bingo games in a special Slack channel. That's been a lot of fun. And then, like many companies I think saw it doing, we're not the only ones doing this. We had an awesome St. Patty's Day happy hour last night. Everyone wore green. A lot of people brought their own booze, and, it went on for well over an hour, and it didn't feel like, you were being forced to be there. I think everyone was welcoming it.
It was that we did the same thing, and I think it was definitely a welcome break last night. Everyone kind of needed it. Curious, you've mentioned to me before that, even your New York-based employees work remotely a lot of the time. But how do you, when you're bringing an employee on, whether they're based in New York or Ohio, do you treat them any differently? Is onboarding different? Is there a different set of rules that you have that apply? Not
Yeah,
rules, but
onboarding is not different at all. In fact, one of the main people who leads our onboarding, our people ops manager, is remote full time. So our people ops manager does our main training is remote full time. So it really isn't different whether you're in the office or not. The only difference is, our office manager will show you around, show you where the espresso machine is, show you where the bathroom is, and all those things related to a physical office that you wouldn't normally need to show someone who's remote. So there's totally that. I think we love our office, and we love hiring people who could be in the office. It's more that everyone gets treated equally when it comes to things like onboarding. Our top sales rep on our mid-market team works remotely 5 days a week often. And it's really everyone's own preference. And we prefer creating good excuses for people wanting to come into the office. Like we do a monthly birthday lunch, and whenever there's free food, there's usually, it's like back in college, like free pizza, people show up. So
a little bit of an uptick in attendance.
Yeah, uptick. We do events in the office, which we're lucky to have a space for. So there really isn't a difference. I think with sales roles, what we did pre-corona was we required the first 3 months to be in the office, purely for training and onboarding and to learn through osmosis from those who do come into the office. Because luckily there are enough people on my team that do come into the office, or being around them, being able to go up to them is a nice added benefit. So that's why we require that for individual contributors and SDRs. We obviously are not requiring that right now, and we have not seen any issues with it at all. So it's definitely going to make us reconsider that. But once we go back to normal life, I think we'll probably institute that again, because it's only for a short period. And it's something that helps, is meant to really help them. And I think after that 3 months, that's it. Like, no questions asked. You can work remotely whenever you want.
I think too, it's an amazing advantage in terms of being agile in a situation like this. I mean, it sounds like nothing's changed for you, almost like you were able to execute this policy of everyone get out of the office and self-quarantine almost seamlessly without your day-to-day changing, impacting company's bottom line or anything like that. So
Nada. All it took was one announcement from our CFO that the office is closed due to Governor Cuomo requesting that all private businesses do that. So that was it. I mean, and most people were already working remotely. I think it's super disappointing still. We have an amazing office we moved into in July that, especially me, like being 10 years at the company, like that's a huge accomplishment that
yeah.
we're able to sign that lease, and it hurts a lot that we can't use it, but it doesn't affect the business at all, luckily.
Good. Well, good. How, what about any advice that you would offer to, or maybe a playbook that you give to your employees, how they can optimize their work from home lifestyle? I mean, are there any tips or insights that you can give somebody?
Yeah. I'm reading a lot of tips myself. I'm personally someone who goes to the office every single day. Like, I rarely work from home because, I just feel like it because I like the office. So it's definitely new for me being in my bedroom at a desk I hadn't used in like 5 years that I had to clear off, making sure my wife's clothes aren't hanging too much in the background. So I'm looking for the tips as much as the next person. But I think just try and, be positive and live normal. Take a shower, get dressed. Like if you're cohabitating with someone, whether it be a significant other or a roommate, set a couple of ground rules. You don't want to embarrass someone by them walking into your video chat by accident. You also want to recognize that, it's not just your space. So I've been trying to let my wife know, like, hey, I'm going to be on video chats in the bedroom from now until X. So just know if you come in here, which you're welcome to do, you're going to be on camera. And then, I think just planning your day a lot more. I plan even my entire personal life on my calendar. So I think just like knowing when you're going to get up, get dressed, eat your breakfast, and try and have a good setup environment if you can, and buy a couple of things on Amazon if you can to make your setup a little bit better. Hopefully your company will help support that if it makes sense, but if not, even small things like, I got myself an external mouse, which I hadn't had before.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Me too.
Yeah, and I put a picture of my cousins and my grandfather on my desk, which, we have hot desks at work, so we don't really have like a place to put stuff like that. So it's small things like that, I think, help a lot in terms of keeping sanity and creating a new normal.
Yeah, I think you do have to, you forget you have to block out time to make and eat lunch and stuff like that when you're home. And it is funny how disruptive, if you don't remember to do those things, they can be for your day. What about in terms of, in the sense of recruiting, do you feel like you have almost a strategic advantage over other companies because of your policies? Did you hear me, Natan? I think we froze a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're back.
In terms of, from a recruiting perspective, do you feel like you have a strategic advantage over other companies? And what is that if you do?
I do. I think we've had such good tenure at the company. And I think when we ask employees, one of the number one things, by far, the number one reason we hear that people stick around at Muck Rack, besides the fact that the business is doing well and that the product is great, because that has to be a given for any company to be successful, is the fact that we have a flexible working policy. I think we employ a lot of a lot of parents, a lot of people in remote parts of the country who have, who have careers now as if they were living in New York City. And I think that's what's really appealing. So I think that puts us at an advantage. And we're super excited that the rest of the world has to do this now. I think if you think about it, everyone's joking how great this is for Zoom. And it's really true. Like, it really is good for Zoom, but it's also like good for Zoom's customer success team. Everyone is getting trained how to do a video chat now. Anyone who's working in the United States of America in an office type environment is going to come back out of this feeling extremely comfortable with working from home. We're kind of washing ourselves of all these trepidations we all had. And they were good trepidations. Some of them are true. And there's for sure going to be employees that might slack off more than they should be. But I think we're all going to come out of this with major corporations instituting new policies. I think we're going to never hear things again like you need a doctor's note to work from home, So that's what I'm excited about.
I mean, if at this point after this, companies aren't set up where they could flip a switch and have their companies work remotely, I mean, you're just destined probably not to be around in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And, we didn't have the Department of Homeland Security before 9/11, and I'm sure there's going to be a Department of Disease Prevention that doesn't exist that comes about after this that's going to reshape the country. And I'm hoping that whatever that formulates into will be about, creating better work environments. Because there's a lot of discussions, and I'm curious your thoughts on this too. There's always lots of discussions about creating better flexibility for parents. And that's always going to be an important topic because it's hard to become a new parent or parent again. But I think there's a lot of other categories of people or minorities or people who need to care for someone or who are more introverted and prefer working in their own environment whose needs aren't addressed too. And I think there's a great, HR revolution that's kind of happening right now. And it's scary at the time because so many jobs are at risk. But the positivity that's going to come from it, I predict, is going to be immense. And I think we're going to truly live in a more digital world. But curious what you think.
Yeah, we actually just hired, our first employee with a child who started this week. So that onboarding question was a little loaded into my own personal needed some tips on that too. But during her interview process, she's got quite a good amount of experience that's relevant to us. She asked me about flexibility, and I said sure, and I didn't think twice because it was her number one requirement to make a move, that she needed flexibility where she needed to either leave or come home a little bit earlier or later, or get out of the office at different times, or if there's a sick kid at home, it shouldn't be an issue or a question. Or on Fridays, she asked me if she could work from home, and it was already actually implemented into our culture, those work from home Fridays. So it was kind of a easy yes to give her, and then I told her to rectify that policy. But yeah, I do think HR, every company after this should have a work from home policy. I think, trust is a big thing, and not to focus on any type of negativity or anything. I want to keep this really positive, but is there a level of trust that do you look at maybe metrics a little bit deeper because everyone's remote? Do you have a little bit more visibility into what people are doing?
Yeah, totally. Listen, I'm in a lucky position, and I know you work with a lot of sales leaders too. I'm a sales leader at our company. So it's an easy answer for me because any sales leader probably has some of the best metrics on employee activity than any other profession or department. So, we have a great tech stack. We not only do we use HubSpot Sales CRM where, activity can be tracked at scale, but my favorite tool is Gong, which we implemented last year, which automatically records calls and videos that were, allowed to record out there in the trenches. And I think that just creates this transparency among things. And so I think hitting numbers, it's just, when you're working in sales, it's impossible not to see people's productivity because it all comes down to the numbers. I think other departments are a little bit more challenging. So I think having good goals, we use the OKR system, which, Google originally developed, and we do that. We do a lot of planning every quarter for that. Every department has their own OKRs. Department heads go through reviews. We take that all pretty seriously and we announce it publicly to the company. So I think everyone within our world has clear goals on what they're going to be doing. And if you focus the time more on setting goals, less on how you're going to retroactively see if people are being productive, the better. Because if business goals are being met, if a salesperson could destroy their number in a short period of time, that's a great thing. So I don't think I've ever had any issues doing that. And another thing our CEO has said a lot, especially in interviews, which I'll steal from him, is people can come to the office and not work all day too. Like they could sit down at their computer and do whatever. And maybe you can walk by and potentially see it, but no one really has time to do that anyway, nor would they want to do that. So I just think those same risks exist when someone's coming into the office.
I know we're running short on time, but I had two quick other last questions. One is actually on interviews, knowing your interview process that you had some parts of it which were in person. How have you moved seamlessly now into this generation or this time of everyone's remote? Has your interview process changed at all, or you just flip that switch again?
Similar flip switch. We had to we had 4 people start on Monday. A couple of them were going to be in the office, so we had to tell them, unfortunately, they can't come in. But really just a flip of a switch, because especially on my team, our sales director is remote full-time. Our sales ops manager is remote full-time. So our sales director is in Ohio, our sales ops manager is in North Carolina, and they're usually on the interview team with me. So a lot of times we have someone come into the office for an interview. 2 of the 4 meetings are in person, and 2 of them are them sitting in one of our conference rooms, video chatting in anyway with someone. So yeah, it definitely sucks we can't show off the office, because I think that's a big selling point for us. But I mean, I think unfortunately now everyone's excited to still be interviewing, right? Just like a week ago, we were talking about how literally a week ago we were talking about it's like a buyer's market, it's a candidate's market, and I hope that still stays the same. But the reality is all the headlines now are saying unemployment can go to 20%, and that's super, super scary. So we're just trying to keep with our hiring plan, and we're positive about it. And we think that the doom and gloom isn't going to help anyone. And, we don't have any plans to stop hiring as of yet.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think companies that pump the brakes maybe too quickly or for too long, when everything flips back around, it's going to be a frantic race for those candidates again, as opposed to the people for the next couple of months. I mean, if you continue your process, you're going to find some really exceptional talent out there that might have been too competitive for you a couple months ago.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Natan, any last words of advice or tips for leaders out there implementing or kind of going through this for the first time?
I think that's it. Trust your employees, and I think it's great how quickly you were able to transform your company. And it's I love hearing you talk about that's how the company got started. So I think continue to spread the good word, and we really appreciate all your help with us for all the hiring so far too. So
thank you. Well, I appreciate all the advice too. I owe you a beer when we can meet up for a beer.
I've still never met the folks on your team, so maybe we could do a virtual beer happy hour together.
I will. Let's set that up after this call. That sounds like a great idea.
Cool. But thanks for putting on the shirt for me. Sorry I didn't do the same for you.
No, I just wanted to make sure it looked professional in case we reuse it outside of Corona.
Yeah, sounds good. And sorry if it might have been my internet. Who knows? So sorry if there were any big issues. But hey, it'll make it even more real.
There we go.